Okay, so this is my presentation, Issues in Data Collection. My name is Alexander Sacco, and this is for CGS3095. So what is data collection, and what does it pertain to? So when I talk about data collection, I'm talking about companies, institutions that basically take users' information. This could go from anywhere from names to emails to addresses to credit card information, social security numbers, really any information that users enter in, but also things that you might not think of, key presses, passwords, mouse movements, even in some cases, eye tracking, depending on what piece of hardware you're using and what software you're using. So this could cause a real issue for some people, whether that's for privacy reasons or for other reasons that we'll talk about in a minute. But the real issue here is that not a lot of people take it seriously enough, and people don't really seem to think it's that big of an issue to ensure that their data is only collected by people that they trust. So there are both unethical and ethical issues when it comes to, or I guess I should say, ethical independent issues, so issues that don't necessarily depend on it being ethical or unethical when it comes to data collection. So first, with some unethical issues, selling data to other institutions. So sometimes when you are on a website or an app, you will be giving a company your data, and that company will then go and sell it to other institutions. This, in and of itself, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you can have certain circumstances where, for example, you're giving away medical information to a company, and that company can then go and give it to whoever they feel like, provided that they are following their region's laws. Although, again, there are certain circumstances where they won't be following certain laws, and so you really have to make sure you trust the people that you're giving your data to. You can have a circumstance where you give medical information, and that information then goes to a insurance company, and they now have medical information on you that can lead to lower benefits or higher rates because they now know that you may be at more risk than somebody else thanks to the data that's been collected. Overconsumption of data. So some companies will overtake the amount of data that they should be. If, for example, you download an app, a pedometer app, to track your walking, you should expect that they take your fitness information, your phone's locational data, your phone's gyroscope. That should all be normal, but if you see that they're taking your address, your contacts, any other information that wouldn't make sense, that could become an issue, especially considering having too much information could lead to you being at more risk. Longevity of storage. So you should hopefully see that they aren't taking the data for too long. Oftentimes you will see in privacy policies, they will state that they'll only take your data for as long as your app is open. So you may have it open for a few minutes, you close it, and that data is then wiped. They shouldn't have it for too long. Generally speaking, if they have it for longer than they need, then that could become a huge issue as they become more of a target as well to hacking. Inaccuracy of privacy acknowledgement. So as I mentioned before with the privacy policy, if they aren't following the privacy policy that they've outlined, or if they don't even have a privacy policy to begin with, then that could become a huge issue. In many countries, it is actually illegal that they actually need to have privacy policies. In particular, in the U.S., in the EU, they have their GDPR laws. In India, and in China, so in China they have the PIPL laws, but in India, their laws are not as strict when it comes to data protection. And so it really depends on where you are. In certain countries, you might feel that you have more safety from companies that are trying to give you false information, but in other countries, they don't yet have the right legal backing. And so it's something that you should look into and make sure that you are up to date with. And just any other laws that are broken when it comes to taking data, of course. Now, ethical independent issues. So these are just issues that don't necessarily deal with ethics. So data leakage in the form of hacking, for example. There are ways that companies can protect themselves from hacking. However, it isn't necessarily the case that a trusted company should be trusted with all of your data, because in the event that you have like this company that you trust with all of your data and you know that they aren't trying to scam you through false privacy policies or any of the other laws I talked about before or any of the other issues I talked about before, they can still pose risks because at the end of the day, any company is susceptible to data leakage. Your data can be hacked. There are, again, ways that they can prevent it. They could improve their security, but at the end of the day, nothing is foolproof, and you shouldn't trust any companies with 100% trustworthiness because all companies mess up eventually. And so all companies should make sure that they are not holding on to too much data for too long. So some solutions. Ensuring that data storage is no longer necessary. So many companies, what they do is they choose not to store data in the first place. They'll actually store it on your own device. So if you enter in some information, it gets stored on your device and accessed only on your device, and they don't keep any of the data. That keeps them out of legal troubles. The only issue with this is that with so many people not really aware of the data that they have and the data that that needs to be protected, and they don't know how valuable it is, this can become an issue for individual people falling at risk to hacking or to like social phishing or other attempts to gain your information from your own device. Lowering the amount of data taken. So companies could lower the amount of data that they need. They could readjust their business practices, readjust their business models so that they don't need nearly as much data as they're taking. And then pay per data solutions. This is something that I'm particularly really interested in. The idea behind being able to pay for data. So a company can pay a user for a certain amount of data. Companies like Brave have been doing this. Brave is a browser that pays users to view ads, and it takes user information to know what kind of ads users like, and it pays out it through cryptocurrency, which doesn't have the best track record with trust and everything, but it's a clear indication that things are might be turning in that direction, and it's a really interesting direction because these pay per data types of solutions can actually help cut down the amount of data that's used and accessed, because companies will only want to take what they really need if they are starting to be expected to pay for it. If a company needs to pay for every specific grouping of data, then they're not going to be accessing all of the data possible. They're not going to be requesting all of the permissions because that's going to cost them extra money that they don't even need to be paying for. So there are some counter arguments for data collection. Some people do not actually think that data collection is as big of an issue. So error decoding, oftentimes when you're on an app or a website and it crashes, you will see you get an error message that says that an error has occurred and that they need to send some logs to the developer. This could be useful as it will inform the developer of what happened and how to fix it. Experience enhancing. So a good example of this is with UI changes, user interface changes. So I mentioned earlier eye tracking. Meta, for example, which is formerly Facebook, they now own a VR headset company. And their VR headsets, their newest ones, actually have eye tracking technology built into it. And so if they could utilize that technology to then view the UI and where you're looking, they could see why it may be that users are getting stuck at certain areas, why they're not being able to find certain items in a store or find how to get to certain areas, because they can see where your eyes are moving, and then they could better fix the UI to that standard. Benefits of user-dependent ads. So some people really like ads that cater to users. So if you have a pet cat and you are searching for cat food, maybe the next day you open up your browser and you see that you now have an ad for cat toys. And some people really like that. Some people don't. They find that the privacy, that it feels like a privacy invasion. But other people really like it because it makes them feel like they can actually have products tailored to them. So all in all, we need to better work with companies to get them to figure out how to lower their data consumption. We need to work with people to help educate them on the risks of data collection, and hopefully this could make everyone a little bit safer and a little bit more secure with their data. Thank you.